Good afternoon, everyone. This is Alana. You're going to hear dogs in the background. I can't control that. You're going to hear wind in the background because it's the Santa Anas and I live in Southern California. At least we're not on fire in this very moment. But today we are going to talk about studies, about copies. And I have a really special picture this is an oil painting actually, that we're going to use as reference, because I'm going to show you one of the many ways that you can go about creating a copy of an image. Now, we are not doing this because we want to steal other people's art. We are doing this as an actual exercise of how to better our skills at depicting visuals that exist before us, at being able to copy colors and being able to recreate those. And so we are not here to steal artwork. We are here to hone our skills, okay? So, I love the ocean. I love deep sea creatures. I love the shallows. I love the tides. I love everything. And so when I was in undergrad, my undergrad is in visual arts. I went to Cal State Bakersfield, and one of my favorite things that I got to do there is I actually made 3 canvases for one of the painting classes that I took. So this is a canvas that I made, which you can tell by its shoddy canvas placement on top of it. But the first picture painting that we were to work on, I believe, was supposed to be like a study of something, like a picture we brought in. So this is a parrotfish eye. It's very blown up. I had a really fun time using what we're going to use today, which is the grid system. Gosh, I'm just looking at it, and because I've moved a half dozen or so, give or take, times since I painted this in, I want to say this is 2012, 2013, so over a decade ago. And you can tell over time there has been some markings that have occurred from scratching and etc. But if you look at this, without seeing the imperfections, this is just a really fun study of a picture of a parrotfish that I printed out on, from the computer and put a grid system on it, and that's how I worked on it. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. But instead of using oil paint, which you are more than welcome to use oil paint if you have the safety precautions put in place, I'm going to be using it's a hard word. Gouache? No. Gouache. Gouache. I'm going to use some gouache because I got a beautiful set from my little brother and his girl for Christmas. So we're going to use some gouache. And instead of working on a plain white surface, which a lot of people often do, or they will treat a surface with a specific color before they go into the paint, like the actual painting process, I'm actually going to use a black canvas. I painted this years ago, and it's just one of those things that I've just kept with me, as a lot of other artists, autistic people do. Just keep things in the corner until they're useful years down the line. But the black is going to be important because, don't even ask me when I got this. I think this was a present even from my grandma, when I was a preteen. I think today we are going to go to the deep ocean. I love cnidarians. I love any kind of jellyfish. So I think today we're going to go in with the mauve stinger. And so we'll start this process off by, I'm going to get some, I don't have tracing paper anymore. It's been a long time since I've had tracing paper, but I do have parchment paper. Oops. But I do have parchment paper. So I'm going to grab some parchment paper. We're going to create a grid on that paper that will then use to trace the image from my ocean book. And then similarly, we will draw another grid upon here. Usually like 1 inch by 1 inch grids work really, really well, especially if there's math involved We'll get to it, don't you worry. But yes, I thought it would be a fun change of pace for episode 10 of Let's Draw to do something very much, I don't want to say baseline, but it is very much falling back onto the actual things I learned in art school, which has been some time since I've been in school. So yeah, let's have fun. I'm looking at myself in the camera. You like my dress? I made it. If you don't like it, get over it. Let's go. Let's start. Also, I'm so sorry. The glare. These glasses were free from a community program. Thank you so much, community programs. But there is no like reflective thing on it, which drives me a little bit nuts. So you just get to see my big fucking window that leads out to a gray wall in the background. Okay, focus. Okay, all right. Hi, new angle. So, okay. Again, you don't even want to know what the camera setup for this is, but just we're going to accept and we're going to move forward. So it's the next day, and we are going to actually go through the process of creating our grid for our project. Meow. I've got a lovely little bit of parchment paper right here. I just eyeballed it size-wise to the actual page that I'm working on. And this isn't gonna work. Hold on. Okay, so what we're going to do, there's a few different ways to create grid projects like this, whether you're sizing up an image or sizing down an image. I believe in this case, I'm just going to keep it as like a 1-to-1 ratio for what we're working on. So for the sake of easy math, let's just go ahead and do 1 inch by 1 inch grid on both our parchment paper as well as our canvas. Tools, we should talk about tools. Yeah, pencil, because it's going to be a lot easier to deal with a pencil than with a pen. Yeah, that works fine. I had to practice that because do not use wax paper for this. The wax is going to transfer. Trust me, I have done it before. That's why the parchment paper is going to be important. A straight edge. Ideally, you would have a straight edge that goes to the equal, to each side of what you're working on. I don't have that. So I do in fact have my really nice big drywall straight edge. So that's what we're working on. All right. So I've talked a little bit previously, especially as it relates to bookmaking, about the monotonous processes within art. And I really love the monotonous processes within art. I find it really meditative. I find it really relaxing. If you don't like this aspect of creating grids, maybe this is just a one-time project that you try and then you never do again. But I would really suggest going through the process of making a nice straight grid as much as you possibly can. All right. So it may be a little hard to tell because of the angle you're at and because of the fact that this is black painted, but we've got our nice little grid and our secondary nice little grid. Now, when it comes to proportions, this is technically not the same, like proportionality lengthwise, widthwise to this canvas. It doesn't matter. Perfect is the enemy of the good. And so when you have that kind of a situation, you can either do like an additional image in the background of your composition. You can do you can elongate it if you want to do like math for proportionality, make, instead of these being 1 by 1 inch and this 1 by 1 inch, you could still keep, you know, the 1 by 1 inch grid for your sketch, but, you know, do like 1.25 as a blow up version for your other material that you're going to be using to paint on. You can do whatever you want. I enjoy putting the scientific information of living creatures when I do life studies of them like this. You know, it's not technically a life study because this is from a book. I'm not in an aquarium, which would be nice, but I am going to utilize some of the extra space that I'm going to have on this canvas to do, like, you know, the phylum name, the species name, maybe even like a little blurb about it, because I think that's fun. So the next part of the process is what I think is really fun, is the actual tracing aspect of this. Now, this is perfect because in this book I've used it so much the binding is breaking down and it fillets really, really nice and flat. But if you're worried about your paper moving, you can always grab just a little bit of tape and tape down your paper. And then you can weigh down the other side of your book so that it stays, you know, flush to the page. But we're just going to do a little bit of this. Okay. So now let's go ahead and trace. And now here's the part where you can tell that I really wanted to grow up and be an animator for some type of company, usually, you know, Disney, but I also loved Don Bluth Productions when I was growing up. And so this is the part where you just slowly go back and forth and check the line work and make sure you're happy with your general composition. Now don't forget, this does not have to be perfect, nor should it be. So long as you are enjoying the process, that is where we are meant to be. Now, where would we be if a grid didn't have information of how to get from one point, you know, one box to another box? So I'm just going through and numbering from right to left, left to right, and then lettering top down. And because there is a discrepancy between, you know, size-wise from the parchment paper itself to the actual canvas, I gave myself a little bit of room on either side and stayed up to the top of the canvas, which is where I wanted to have, you know, the actual image of my jellyfish to stand out. I thought it would be more catching to the eye if it was at the top as opposed to it being at the bottom. Okay. I don't know if you can see this correctly, but we have now given information to our graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Ignore the fact that the J was a G at first. My brain doesn't work well. So we did the same thing on our canvas. And this is what I mean by it's not necessarily perfectly proportionate to our paper, because we've got a ton of boxes that are just going to be unlabeled compared to our sketch here, which is where I'm just going to fill the space with who knows what. But we got our, you know, little bit of space on each side, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Let's get started. Hello. Okay. The light is changing. The light will always change. We move forward anyways. So now is the next part of this study process, which is going to be creating the colors for this. I'm going to try and match this as closely as possible. Try and ignore the dogs in the background. I also have the 1970 whatever Robin Hood in the background. So if you hear the that's what that is. But I don't know how to teach how to color mix. This is very much going to be based on learning the depths of mixing one color to another color to another color. So when it comes to the color wheel, there's actually multiple color wheels, whether you're working in digital art, which is like yellow, magenta, and cyan, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And then physical media color wheel, which is red, blue, green. Yeah. Maybe we're just gonna do this. Hi, how are you? So, when it comes to the color wheel, digital versus physical, there's a variation in how you work with colors because of light, in essence. We have colors due to light in the absence of light. So when it comes to mixing, especially when it comes to such a dark background, I'm going to very much work on having the true hue of the pigments, so just the, you know, paint straight out of the tube, as opposed to mixing things with white, with black, which will, you know, lighten things versus darken things. So let me see if I can have you back up on, you know, I got a really cute little tripod, and it's got like little armies that wrap around things, but it's not a perfect system. So the arms of the tripod are on the actual other large tripod that I have. So let's see if we can connect you so that you stay put. Give me a second. Okay, I think we've got it now. If you go flying again, I'm so sorry. But let us transfer our attention to the Nadarian. So there are, I would say, 5 main colors that we're going to be playing with this guy. We've got at the very edge most, like what I would call a navy blue or an indigo. This is actually going to be the one color that I'm going to use a watercolor for. Watercolor and gouache and acrylic, while they are all different in their chemistry, they, in my opinion, work really well regardless of what you're using them for. So I like to and I do mix watercolor and gouache and acrylic. So I will be using a different brand indigo, along with, I don't even know how to pronounce this correctly, Caran d'Ache gouache set. So we're going to use a nice indigo. That's our first color. Second color is going to be actually this orange, this yellow orange. So I really like this lighter toned orange. So that'll be second color. Third color, obviously this beautiful red. So we're gonna use scarlet. Fourth color is this fun little, I would consider this and some aspects of the stingers, as well as little parts of the bell underneath, to be almost like a magenta color. So not quite purple, not quite red. So we'll use the magenta. And then the fifth and final color is going to be this really lovely purple, which we will use. Now, I had said a little bit earlier that we're not going to be reliant on using black and white, just because of the vibrancy of this sea creature. I love the vibrancy of it, so I don't really want to muddle down the colors that we have by utilizing too much white or black. However, I am going to want to add a little bit to it to lighten up the color of these. What is it? Frilly Monty lobes. The frilly Monty lobes. So I will be using just a little bit of white. And then obviously we have a little bit of white in the edges of the, I just said it, stinger. And then a little bit of white here and there too here. I'm sure I'm going to go in with just a touch of yellow at the edges of this membrane right here, just to try and keep it as realistic as possible. But I'm also, you know, I'm not grading myself on this. This doesn't have to be perfect. So let us slide this over. Now that I have this sort of, you know, mapped out. I usually use a separate mixing palette for my colors because I worry about staining the inner material of like a case like this, but I've actually been using it to mix palettes for the last couple of days, and it cleans up really well. It hasn't stained anything, so we'll probably just keep using it. Alongside all of this, it's important to have a water container, so I have a lot of water containers that just roll around, but I really like this one because it's collapsible. It is a Faber-Castell. I couldn't even tell you what this is. I bought it at Blick Art Materials probably a decade ago at this point, but we can do that. We can do a little bit of water. I need to be hydrated. You should be hydrated. No one's told you to go have a gulp of water today. Go have a gulp. Oh, do I want a palette knife? I have been mixing things without a palette knife for months, but I know where they are. Give me a second. All right, we found it. I have a fair amount of palette knives that I own. However, my favorite one is actually this little guy. A lot of my art supplies are from my grandma on my mother's side because she wanted to be an artist and she wasn't able to do that in the time of the world that she was alive. So I am very grateful for a lot of my watercolors are actually from her, like all of the soft stuff. This in fact is from her in her stash. And I can't find the writing on here. I wonder if I've just used it so much. Either way, this is from Japan. I couldn't tell you what the anything is, name brand or whatever. But all of my favorite art supplies are from Japan. So one of these days we'll get there. But today we're talking about jellyfish. So let us start with that lovely little purple. Now, is there a science to this? Probably. Do I know what that science is? Fuck no. All I would counsel you to consider is how much proportionally speaking paint you're putting in each little pile to try and create. So just a little bit of white, majority purple, and just a touch of magenta. Because as you go through this process, you're going to use more paint than you think you are going to, and you're going to have to remix these colors. Which again brings up the topic that perfect is the enemy of the good. There is no need to have a perfectly executed fill in the blank, especially as it relates to art. Now, if you're in a class and if your teacher wants you to execute X, Y, and Z, that is another conversation. But a good teacher isn't going to demand you to do X, Y, and Z. But then again, we're not going to get into that. We ain't going to argue about that. Life's too short. Orange, scarlet. Now you may be asking yourself, what about all of these odd middle colors that are in between everything? Well, the answer is you gotta get a little bit of freaky with your mixing. You gotta accept that there's literally some colors in here that are gonna look like shit. Like it's gonna look messy, it's gonna look brown, but that's also part of like the process of recreating colors. Because not all colors are beautiful and vibrant. If you look around your room, if you look around your outside of the door, especially in the middle of the winter, most everything is varying shades of beige, of brown, etc. Yeah, fuck it, we'll put this in here too. Okay. So let's do just a little bit of mixy. Can you see? Yes, you can see. Okay. That's a nice little purple. You can grab a little bit of extra purple and section it off and make it even darker than what you initially have. And then section off that lighter color that you have pre-mixed and the remainder of the white. And just in a matter of, I don't know, what is this, 20 seconds? You've got 3 different varying shades that are all still cohesive because they all have the same makeup, the same part. And if you wanted to add a little bit more of X, Y, and Z, you can always go one little space over so that there's some difference, but you've still got a lot of paint on your actual little palette knife. And I'm not even doing a perfect job of mixing this so that I have variation of color within the mixed portion itself. So let's get a little bit closer, shall we? Let me make sure that we are in focus. But yeah. And when there's extra on the palette knife, I do usually like to just spread it on. So let me see, what number are we on? If we're in this sort of area, when we look at our grid, we're in the F, GHIs in between, you know, 2 and 7. So if we go into this guy right over here, FGHIs in between 2 and 7. Put all the extras on there, and it'll get used at some point. It'll get mixed in, it'll get covered, but I personally will know that I used up as much paint as possible. All right, now I do want to wipe this off. Let me see. Okay. Can even dunk it in some water and it'll wipe off a little bit easier. Okay, so we've got our frilly mouth lobes. I can read upside down and backwards. So we have our frilly mouth lobes color pretty much set. So let's work on our gonads under the bell. So we've got a little bit of orange and red. And if you see, there's still some variety of like lightness to darkness in this piece, in this little area that I'm mixing. So grab some of that and a little bit of the magenta on the other side. Funny enough, it's about the same color as the actual brand name is printed on here. And then grab red and, oh, that's nice. That's a nice color. Can you tell I just enjoy color mixing? All right, so the red parts are gonna be pretty much solidly B through C on 4 to 6. So B through C on 4 to 6. And just gonna put this right here. Okay. Now this, in theory, for the actual bell and tail, I suppose you could call it, of this jellyfish is a really nice indigo, but it's not as deep blue as it could be. It is actually a little bit lighter. So I think I am gonna grab a little bit more of this white, add it to just the edge, and I'll take maybe like half, and mix it together. And even that is like almost too light, and it's not quite as blue as it could be. What you can also always do is take the actual paint palette on your knife and just put it up to the picture. And that's actually pretty stinking close. If I really, really, really wanted to, which I might, I could grab one of the blues. I have 2 blues in this set. So there's an ultramarine, which is my favorite kind of blue. It's ultramarine. Or a cyan. And I think the cyan is, when we talk about warm and cool colors, it has a lot to do with the underlying chemical composition that reflects light. And so the cyan is too warm of a blue, which may sound bizarre, but it's too warm of a blue to match what we're looking at. Couldn't think of the word. Words are hard. So I think I am going to take just a little bit of ultramarine. Just a touch. Oh, well, that's fine. It's fine, whatever. Doesn't matter. Can you tell I've lived in Los Angeles County most of my life? I can do like 12 different variations of Valley Girls. So if anyone is interested in that, you know who to call. Okay. Let us see. That is marginally better. Okay. very odd. I'm just seeing how the watercolor is mixing with the gouache, and it's just a very odd texture. That's all. So let me see, this is the very topmost edge. So we're probably looking at A and just the perimeters of B. Looking at the thing with the thing on it helps. 5, sorry, you can see it. 5, 4, curling, curling. Okay. Now, I guess this brings us to the next question. Why do I not directly sketch, you know, the picture that we are working with onto the canvas itself? And I think that there are a couple good reasons for that. First of all, it's more reason to stress. Because if you're going to try and make it look absolutely perfect from the book onto the what are you? Parchment paper. And then go from the parchment paper onto the canvas and try and make it perfect every single time, you're just going to give yourself a headache. The second part of it is you have already done a little bit of the muscle memory to get A onto B. So it's, I would say it's less stressful in working to get from, you know, B onto C by just going in square for square and working, you know, that's kind of the reason why we're using a grid in essence, is because we don't need to perfectly sketch out our image onto multiple different pieces of material. So I don't know if that made a ton of sense, but I'm just trying to show you how you can work on your skills as an artist without completely falling down the rabbit hole of perfection. Because remember, perfect is the enemy of the good. We are not going for perfect. We are going for creation. So now that we've got our colors we're going to work with, and reminder, we're going to have to remix these multiple times, let us have a little bit of fun. You can go any way you want to for a grid system. You can start at, you know, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. I don't like taking direction, so I'm probably just gonna do whatever the fuck I want to do, and then we'll commiserate through the process. So let's get started. And now we have actually gotten to the painting portion of the lesson on painting. I know it may sound a little counterintuitive, but it is important to start learning how to create foundations for paintings if you want to do, you know, this process over and over and over again, because that's how we learn. We do things over and over and over again. Okay, we're gonna take a moment because it's too wet for me to do anything with, but it's so fucking hot out in the middle of January. It's gonna be fine. It'll dry in a few minutes. But I'm coming to the realization that I'm gonna need to use a lot more white than I did anticipate. So I'm gonna emotionally get over that. And yes, we have a cat that has joined us. Ah! Excuse me. Give me just a minute, we will dry off. I transitioned to the last unicorn because as long as it's medieval based, I'm happy. So let's give it a minute. Maybe I'll have a second cup of tea. And we're on the home stretch. I did emotionally get over the fact that I needed to use a lot more white than I was initially using. But when it comes to using a pure color with the white added on a black background, it still pops in a really nice way that I wasn't anticipating. So I've actually really, really loved how this process has been, how it has turned out, and I couldn't be happier with the result. I mean, she's popping, she's flowing, she's flurrying. I love her. She is the moment. And so we're all done. Now, is this perfect? No. Does it look like an exact copy of our book? Of course not. That's not the goal here. But the goal was to work on our art skills, on matching colors, on figuring out how a grid system works, and not getting it perfect, because it's not perfect. Oh, I'm sorry. I know you don't like that sound. I'm so sorry. I've offended the cat. But I'm pretty proud. We've had a fun time, a good time. You and I and the mauve stinger. So homework today is to go do some grid work. Go see what you can and would like to make a drawing of, make a study of. This is not, you know, a professional portraiture of this jellyfish. This is what we would just consider a study. So it doesn't matter what you like. Go do a doodle of it. If you like video games, go draw video games. If you love food, go sit down with a nice meal and then sketch that food out. Get rid of that so that the cat stops freaking out. If you want to try this on a portrait of someone you know or someone you don't know, just be respectful, but give it a shot. So have a beautiful rest of the day. I hope you've enjoyed just me rambling on. But that is your homework. Go do a little bit of grid work. See what you can doodle up. So have a beautiful rest of the week, good start of the weekend, and see you all later.